All right, man. Just before we started recording here, you said that you had a motivational technique you wanted to share. Should you start with that, or should I do the whole VNR cycles thing?
Totally up to you, Pat, because it's quite off topic. So
Okay.
your
All right. Let me do
call.
the cycles thing, and then
Okay.
see, people will stick around now to hear this off-topic thing.
Yeah, a little
So,
carrot. Okay.
little Easter
Sounds
egg.
good.
Of course, everybody out there, we appreciate you, and you help keep the show going forward. So if you want to help the show going forward, support it, and hopefully improve your athletic performance, Very Not Random has a whole bunch of cool cycles you can check out. We got a bunch under Get Your First umbrella, strict pull-ups, bar muscle up, handstand walk, toes to bar. There's all kinds of those Get Your First ones. There's a bunch of just, get strong barbell capacity programs. There's some cool niche ones, like one all about the jump rope to make you amazing with the jump rope. That's cool. Some endurance things, 1.5-mile run. There's a run, bike, row program all in one that's 12 weeks long. So check all those out at variednotrandom.com. If you're a gym owner, you got to do all the things. You got to do workout tracking, gym management, and billing, that stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. btwb has an all-in-one solution that encapsulates all of those software that gets along and talks to each other, and it's seamless. So if you're interested in that as a gym owner, any type of gym, go to btwb.com and check out the all-in-one. So before we get to the topic today, first of all, what's in your shirt? BFFs, what are those two things?
Oh, it's a local place in Nashville. It's a great breakfast spot called the Sky Blue Cafe, and it's got a little bacon and eggs, best friends.
Oh, aren't
So,
they though? I just
yeah.
made some bacon for my son this morning for lunch. Good anytime.
Yep.
And when you find a good breakfast joint, isn't it just a gift from above?
I agree. It's one of life's great pleasures is
It
to have a
really is,
solid
man.
breakfast spot in the neighborhood. So
If I had all
absolutely.
my friends in one geographical location and we all hit the lottery, we're just unemployed, there would just be mandatory long breakfasts on a
Oh
regular
yeah.
basis.
100%, man. Once a week, that'd
That'd be
be the best.
just to
Yep.
solve the world's problems over some
Yeah.
bacon and coffee.
Yep.
Oh, okay, all right. So your motivational thing.
Well, I am in a constant state of trying to get better at the old jiu-jitsu, and I got to admit, Pat, it's been a bit of a dry patch for the last little bit, and kind of getting back into it. I feel like I'm perpetually in that zone. But I had a woodworking project the other day, and the result of that was a bunch of these little offcuts. And I got to thinking, I was like, man, these make perfect triangles. And anybody that knows jiu-jitsu knows that the triangle choke is the best submission out there. And so I also pursue jiu-jitsu, I'd say probably 80% for the smack talk. Uh, and so I thought, what better than a physical embodiment of the smack talk than a triangle that I could give to people when I get that submission on them?
Oh,
And then it
dude.
creates a little game. So you get a nicely finished little triangle. I clean them up real nice. I bevel all the edges. I put a finish on there. And so if you get triangled, I give you one. And then you got the mark. You got to pass it along. So next time you catch
Dude.
a triangle on somebody else, you pass it to the next person. So we started that game this week with some of the guys I train with at,
Oh,
at the
that's
jiu-jitsu
great.
place. And
Victim of the
yeah.
triangle submission.
So it's fun, man. It's already resulted in people's defense becoming a little bit more serious because they don't want to get the mark. So it's
Oh,
good.
dude.
Yeah.
Is there just one triangle that gets passed around? Or is there
No,
multiple in
man. I
circulation?
made a series of about 25 of them, and they're
Okay.
like kind of coin sized, so you can
They're
just
out
kind
there
of keep
now.
them in your pocket. Yep. They're starting to circulate. We're
Oh,
still
man.
breaking into it, but it's
All
fun.
right.
Fun game.
That's cool. Yeah, people that'll motivate some folks.
Yeah.
So this topic was sent to me by somebody. It's from Reddit, and the person who posted it on Reddit under the CrossFit Reddit or subreddit or whatever it is, their handle is nonsensical. But I'll say what it is in case somebody can identify it or tag them. It's the number 4, MMUN, the number 1, S7. So whatever that is, that's just a random handle. But this is
Tracks
what
for
they said.
Reddit.
So I'm turning 47 soon. White male, 5'11". I've been attending a CrossFit style fitness program now for 15 years, 5 days a week. So there's some serious dedication.
Yeah.
Before this
15
is
years doing anything is no joke.
yeah.
Yep.
Again, this has been on the longer side. People stick with me, and then we'll dissect it. Before that fateful day in 2010, I attended my first session. I was sedentary, overweight, unfit. You could say I had a transformation in my life due to CrossFit. From my mid to late 30s, I even got competitive, did a bunch of local comps, spent time and energy and focusing on the open every year. Anytime I traveled, I dropped into boxes and met cool people to work out with. Super, that's the goal right there. But now, 15 years later, I find myself at a crossroads. Physically, I have a few lingering injuries that just won't leave me. My joints just don't work well enough to do the master's workout movements. When I list out the common movements in any CrossFit program, I find myself with maybe a third of them that I refuse to do anymore, and just over half that I really don't like doing anymore. The list of things that I enjoy or want to do now, which is movements that don't leave me for multiple days, weeks, or months of ongoing recovery pain, is kind of short and now looks more like a bodybuilding, maybe powerlifting workout. But it's more than just physical. I've done enough burpees and thrusters and front squats for my lifetime. Mentally, I am done with those movements and many more. I do not relish them as a challenge or even some way to improve myself. I find myself holding back a lot on movements simply because I don't enjoy it. Sometimes I'm bored of it. I know it sounds cliche, but the whole notion of constantly varied itself has just become a random mix up of tons of stuff that I've done at this point. It's not interesting, it's routine. We're almost there, we're almost at the end. Also, I just don't have the willingness to enter the pain cave anymore. I know that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable can greatly improve your fitness over time, but honestly, I find myself frequently staring into that pain cave and just not going there. I just don't care to move fast enough to do that much work in a short period of time or to find out where the pain cave is today. My heart just isn't in it. I want to work out, but I find myself seeking something less intense, something that won't trigger another injury or inflame any one of the many that I think might never go away. He's thinking about ending the subscription at his gym here soon. And he says, am I alone in this? Have others hit this too, felt this way? If so, what have you done about it? So that's it. It got like a ton of feedback, like over 150 comments, lots of interaction. I glanced through a bunch of them. It resonated with a lot of people. There was tons of people out there that had like stopped doing CrossFit altogether or significantly reduced it and were chiming in with what they've done. But it's a big topic. I've got some various thoughts, and I know I just read a lot, but I'll summarize it in case people are like, okay, Pat, that was like a book. 15 years of dedication, 5 workouts a week. He's 47, lingering injuries, lingering pain, doesn't want to enter the pain cave, motivation is low, bored, burnt out, heart's not in it. What should he do?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I'll start
A ton.
just with a little bit of levity. The great Jason McDonald, who I'm lucky enough to call a friend of mine, awesome athlete. He
A
and his friend
Canadian, no
group-
less.
Also Canadian, yeah. He and his friend group used to say all the time, and this was just to give each other a hard time, that, oh, when you get 47, it all falls apart. That was like the joke that they would rib each other with.
Right at this age would be great.
Yeah, so it was really funny that 47 came up as this guy's age, but or this individual. Anyway, yeah, man, a lot to unpack there. The 3 things that really jump out to me, and I won't address all 3 of them all at once because I think that there's some depth there, but the 3 things that just are so immediate in this person's story is, number 1, why do you have these injuries that fail to resolve? That's a big one that just keeps coming up to me. Is like, what's going on here?
Yes.
If you're engaging in something in good faith, and I hope that you've got people around you that are helping provide guidance, and you have enough awareness at this point, 15 years deep, it's strange to me that we've got this constant kind of nagging, unresolved injury situation. So that to me is number 1, like, hey, that has to be addressed. There has to be some sort of resolution there. No matter what it is that you choose to do physically into the future, like, that's got to be a priority. So
you want to linger on that one for a second, or
sure,
what do you want to do?
Yeah. Let's do that.
That one jumped off at me as well. And first of all, like, obviously we don't have this gentleman to speak with, right? And I think you might have said this. If not, you probably would have. So I'll say it anyway. But like, hey,
don't put words in my mouth, Sherwood.
First of all, 15 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Like, people get bored. Like, it's okay to get bored. Like, and dabble somewhere else, or take a detour, you still stay in the physical culture and come back. Like, that's cool.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. But then, like, exactly what you said, you've tapped onto something with the injuries. We'll get there. But this overall story, potentially worded differently, because it sounds like this guy's really considering closing the door on CrossFit and going
Mhm.
somewhere else, is something that I've mentioned anecdotally on several episodes before, that it breaks my heart of that this is a story that sadly is so common when I talk to people in my peer group or at my son's basketball game and the word CrossFit comes up and they're of my age range, well, I just turned 50. I was going to say 40s. So 40s, 50s, is, oh yeah, used to do it, don't anymore. Oh yeah, my brother-in-law did it, pulled a hammy. Oh, yeah, I never hear, yeah, been doing it nonstop for 15 years. Knees, back, and shoulders feel great. See you in another 5 years. And it doesn't, I'm always so confused because I'm 20 years in. And I'm like, why is everyone having, that I at least interact with, having such a significantly different experience with what is the same methodology? Like this
Mm.
poor guy,
Yeah.
47 years old, 15 years into CrossFit, sir, without knowing you, like, you shouldn't have just a laundry list of nagging injuries. Something, in my personal opinion, went off course and was not properly executed. I can take some random, I will now do what I do best, which is making broad, sweeping generalizations based on minimal facts.
Only way to live.
It's the only way to live. It's very
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna make a guess, since he said, like, got really into some local competitions. Couldn't all about the open. Can't do the masters movements anymore. But in my mind, I'm like, can't do the masters movements anymore. You're
Mm.
47. I don't
What
think
does
the
that mean?
weights have changed yet. So your
Yeah.
movements are actually still the same movements as every other human being. So are you doing like some masters programming? Like, again, here's my no basis for this, but I have a feeling that there's a lot of people that get fired up. Maybe they're following their favorite competitors and they're regular human beings with busy lives and regular duties and schedules, and they decide they're going to train like a competitor without actually realizing the true toll and commitment and recovery and whatnot that these actual full-time dedicated competitive athletes put themselves through, and what they do to be able to train like that on a regular basis. And you get a bunch of just average Joes who are like, count me in. And then again, I don't know that's what happened to this individual, but I've seen that story play out several times.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe something like that led to nagging injuries. But just executing what you and I, and hopefully a lot of people enjoying this program, think of when we think of the methodology and the workout of the day and what you should do, it shouldn't lead to a laundry list of nagging injuries. It just should not.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to dovetail on your point there about, whether or not this person is getting sucked into this competitive mindset, I think it is easy if you're doing something for 15 years, specifically when it's spanning that kind of range of your life where you're starting. I mean, this person started at age 32,
Mm-hmm.
presumably, right? So you're kind of at your prime physically in a lot of ways. Now, he said that he started in kind of a sedentary place, whatever. That can even exacerbate this more, meaning, I bet you for those first 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years, there's a lot of progress that's being made, and that can be very addictive. And especially when you're being fed this sort of true thing where CrossFit talks about like objective results being really important. And of course, that is true. But at a
Mm-hmm.
certain point, the reality sets in that you will not make progress forever. And you have to look at different domains about what progress means. I will not continually get better in every single domain of fitness forever until I decide to hang up my training
Right.
shoes. That's just a reality. So you have to look at some other metrics there. And if your mindset doesn't allow for that kind of flexibility, it can really add to that burnout, especially if you combine that with this mentality of like, I need to be doing more or harder. And that's why I'm not seeing these continued results. It can all spiral on itself. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go off topic here a little bit and talk about an experience I had. I was thinking about this while you were talking, and it took me down memory lane. I trained acrobatics as a young man when I was, in my early 20s. And I trained with a bunch of guys that at the time were much older than me. They were in their late 40s, early 50s, and they still taught at the school that I trained acrobatics at. Many of them did like flying trapeze and things like that. And I remember in particular, there was one guy, and he could throw like the perfect trick or two. He had like a couple of these tricks that he could just throw and they were flawless. And the dude, I mean, I think he was like 52 at the time.
It's impressive.
Yeah, and you'd ask him, he'd be like, "Dude, like, what are you training for?" He's like, "I'm not training for anything." He's like, My role now is coaching." He said, "However, it's really important to me that I have one or two of these basic tricks that I can maintain forever. And it's not important that they are flashy. It's not important that they are pushing the envelope technically as far as like what other people are doing within this activity, but I can throw them cleanly. I can throw them cold. I can do them basically anytime I want. And to me, if I can project that into my next decade of life, like being 60 and still doing this clean, well executed basic trick or two, dude, what am I preserving at that point? Like that's a really, really cool thing to kind of hang on to. And I didn't really think about it until right now, but it also offers a pressure release because it's like, man, I'm just trying to move cleanly and powerfully and like make it just flawless. What a great goal to maintain. And it has nothing to do with whether it turns heads. And you
Mm-hmm.
translate that to the CrossFit world. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's a heavier barbell than it was when you were in your 30s.
Right.
But dude, like being able to hang on to that like perfectly executed clean and jerk until you're 75, regardless of weight, maybe that's a new shift. You know what I mean? So it's a long-winded way of saying, and I think we've touched on this with previous episodes, but adjusting your metrics for what it means to improve, I think is a fundamental conversation that has to happen at a certain time, particularly with athletes that have been in the game for a long time. It
Mm.
doesn't make any sense when you're 5 years in. You don't have to have these conversations yet. But when you get to that 10-year mark, 12-year mark, 15-year mark, it's like, yeah, man, the expectation cannot be, well, it's a faster mile this year than it was last year, because that's just setting you and your coach up for a failure. So the metric has to be adjusted to something else. And that doesn't mean it's a cop out and you're like, well, I just don't care about the result.
Mm-hmm.
No, but you have to have some sort of pressure release valve that recognizes that you don't get to keep going forever in that linear trajectory. That has
Yes.
to be some part of the conversation.
And I think, there also is, I don't know how I want to word this, like a way to do CrossFit for lack of a better way to say it, your whole life.
Sure.
Because when this first started, we were all learning at the same time, and there wasn't somebody who's been doing it 30 years. They're just at
Mhm.
that point in time, unless
Yeah,
one of somebody old folk from Greg's original training, whatnot.
sure.
And so a lot of us are learning on the go as to what is that beautiful balance of doing this in a way that is sustainable for not just years but for decades. Because as
Mhm.
far as I'm concerned, I can't see a point in time in my life where functional movements won't be a better choice than non-functional movements, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm shy of me getting some horrific injury. I understand the beauty of variance, and then I believe Greg was correct that intensity drives results. All of those things I think are true, and I think all of those things can also be true and have a little journey that takes place over the course of different seasons of your life, but the tenets still remain the same. I mean, because this individual is talking about maybe going into a powerlifting program. So if that's the case, you're obviously okay with squatting, you're okay with deadlifting, and you're okay with pressing. I mean, you're covering the major
Yeah.
gross movement patterns, and you're probably going to touch some good loading, and you're thinking about doing this other stuff. So it sounds like there's a lot that you could do um, to still be doing functional movements. It's just you got burnt out along the way, and if I can through this program, whatever, like try to help people make smart decisions and avoid that burnout so that you can be doing what we all know and love as CrossFit for as long as possible. Then, because the reason that I do it is I think that it works better than anything else. And I think it will prepare me for the best, highest quality of independent life for as long as possible. So, in my mind, the more we can set people up for longevity in CrossFit, the better. And again, without knowing this individual, I have a feeling that it was probably too much at some point in time, whether it was too much loading, too much intensity, not enough recovery, too much training sessions, the more is better, like whatever it happened to be, something went off course and then led to not only physical burnout, but mental burnout. And I think of like, so, okay, here we go. There's the arc of the athlete, right? You're 25 years old. You work out 5 days a week. You burn it down every single day is full send. Like, you burn the boats and you feel great the next day when you wake up and your motivation is high and your knees, back, and shoulders feel good and everything's trending in the right direction. Well, then that arc of the story is eventually all the way in. If you do this over the course of your life, you have those like videos that we made with the older folks lifting the water jugs,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Remember that? And so
Oh
what
yeah.
was that? That was, to the best of our ability, functional movements, but at lower intensity, because we realize that even at the other end of the spectrum of your life, you have to be able to pick things up off the ground. You have to go from a seated to a standing position. But at 78 years old, your central nervous system doesn't recover at the same rate as when it was 27 years old.
Hmm.
And so we might not just be able to torch you every day in the gym and have you come
Yeah.
back. So sometime between 25 and 78 years old, it might go from, a journey with loading, a journey with training frequency, and a journey with how often can you burn the boats. It's not going to just fall off at a cliff. It's like, yep, I can go 5 days a week and now I'm at zero. Well, no, there's
Yeah.
probably going to be this storyline of your life. And even, Greg used to say, hopefully I'm not butchering his words, but he would give some hierarchy like, hey, what would I love to see you do? Okay, first thing I'd love to see you do, functional movements at high intensity. Next thing, functional movements at low intensity, because functional movements are what you need to live on planet Earth. Okay, then I'd like to see you do non-functional movements if, at least you're still moving, and let's bring some intensity to that. And then at the bottom of the barrel, non-functional movements at low intensity, like this general
Sure.
hierarchy. Like, I think all of these things, those four things there, the arc of the 27-year-old that burns it down to the 78-year-old lifting the water jugs, like we're all on this arc. And at what point in time some of those things that I just mentioned change or shift for you? It could be at 35, it could be at 45, it could be at 55, whatever it happens to be. I can't give you that answer because it's not just a simple equation.
Mm.
But I think you have to have these concepts in your head and be open minded to them. If you just don't want to train CrossFit for 5 years, but you want to train it for 35 years. And so that's my gentle little soapbox right there.
Yeah, no, a couple of thoughts that came out from that. Number one, I think it's interesting to pursue powerlifting in lieu of, CrossFit, just because
It's still
some of
getting
the
at,
older,
right.
well, I was just going to say, like, I've been around a lot of kind of brush shoulders with a lot of powerlifting community over the years. And I will say some of the most notoriously beat up individuals are the masters powerlifters. So if you're looking for injury prevention, just, tread carefully on that one. But, anyway, not to harp on that too much, I also think what you said about this experiment is really important for people to understand. You mentioned that at that time in the early days, there hadn't been people doing this for decades. It just didn't exist long enough. I think people should also remember and take a step back that that is true for the physical culture more broadly.
Mm.
And at least from what I've observed, being into this stuff for a long time now, not just CrossFit, but just kind of like niche physical culture, I think it's true that kind of globally and broadly, um, it was more accepted up until very recently that you would have a career as an athlete or you'd be engaged in some sort of athletics. You would work out as a younger person. And then at a certain point, you kind of would lose interest for that or like you'd no longer pursue it. It was just kind of that was like what you kind of age out of. And
Hmm.
then you kind of settle into middle age and beyond. And then that's that. It was rare that you would see middle age and above people participating in almost anything physical beyond like a walking club or like something very low impact like that. I think it's kind of a brave new world in the past couple of decades where people are engaged in these more masters focused activities at all. Never mind
Hmm.
CrossFit. That's my observation. I obviously don't have like the data to back that up, but I bet you it's probably pretty true. If you go back and look in the late 90s or early 2000s, how many masters competitors are showing up for any sport on that level, I bet you the number is really small. I mean, I was just at the Masters CrossFit Games and they had over 500 competitors at that event. You know what I mean? And so those are people that have all qualified and bested other competitors in their division and been narrowed down. Like the number is way bigger now. in my
Mm-hmm.
estimation, than it ever has been, of people just doing stuff into older age. And we don't know what that looks like. I mean, I truly believe the benefit is massive, but you don't get a free lunch, right? Yeah, maybe that does come with a little bit more of a, ache and pain and some of the mental difficulties of not being in your prime for life, but I still think it's worth it. So that's kind of interesting. And I think something that people should kind of reflect on a little bit. But then the other thing that's really big for me, you touched on this a little bit, but the philosophy of what you're doing, I think, can really ground you as you move forward. And so, what I mean by that is that CrossFit, kind of as an extension of what we talked about with the Masters, and now it's accepted that like people just keep doing stuff. Same thing with CrossFit. It's become kind of codified into this box. Like CrossFit is this thing in this way, done this many times a week with this expectation. I don't think it was ever meant to be that personally. I think the philosophy was much more broad.
I used to
And I
be that
think,
rigid in my definition of it as well, quite frankly.
yep. And I think the original intent was that this is an exploration. Hey, we do not have all the answers. Hey, exercise science has failed catastrophically for the average person in truly moving the needle in their
Mm-hmm.
fitness, and for most athletes, for that matter, frankly. It's the coaches at the cutting edge that are doing the work, not the science paper that gets published, 10 years after the fact. And so if you kind of look at that as a basis of what we're doing, and allowing yourself within that to experiment a little bit more and say, okay, maybe CrossFit for me does not look like doing it 5 days a week at 5 a.m. with full intensity anymore. And you give yourself that exploration of like, okay, maybe it's opening myself up to learn new movements in new ways with new equipment, and not chasing a pounds or reps goal, but a
Mm-hmm.
movement quality goal. Or maybe it's a learn and play new sports aspect that is kind of thrown in there and often forgot by people. Is like, okay, how can I take this fitness that I've got, maintain it, and channel it into something that actually matters to me now at this stage in my life, whatever that happens to be. If reps in the gym isn't doing it for you anymore, hey man, no problem. You don't owe anybody anything at this point. Channel that into something else and figure out what it is that does. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm in Tennessee. Tennessee has the most collection of waterfalls than any other state in the union, from what I'm told. Maybe my new goal is channeling my fitness into like, I want to hit the 10 biggest waterfall hikes in Tennessee by the end of the year.
Mm.
Maybe that's my fitness goal, and I use CrossFit as a conduit for that. And that's my metric for success. You know what I mean? Who cares about more reps in the gym? If it allows me to go do that, that's the condition for winning that I've now established. So I don't know, man, a couple things in there. I really can't emphasize enough that it's easy to kind of fall into this mentality that CrossFit is this codified thing, and that somehow, because I've engaged with it for a long time and it's had these positive benefits in my life, that I owe something as far as like how I engage with it. That's not true. There's so much flexibility with how you approach this and what you want to get out of it, that I think it just takes that time to step back and sit down and say, what is it that I really want to get out of this now? And what is important to me? And how can I use it as a funnel for those things, if that makes sense?
It does for sure. And I think if this gentleman um, was willing to not give up on it yet, here is something that I think would potentially benefit him, again, without having the luxury of being able to ping some specific questions off of him. But it sounds like he's competitive by nature, really driven by that, which is great. And you've been at it 15 years. So, like you said, based upon your athletic ability and where you started from, you've got obviously all the beginner gains out of the way. He's probably made his way through the intermediate ones as well. And he's in that tough area where gains are, you got to fight tooth and nail for them. They happen infrequently. They're a razor's edge. And oh, by the way, you're approaching 50. So that's going to be even tougher to do. It is what you're in that stage of life. But maybe your mindset hasn't shifted. And not saying, you got to, give up and start driving a Buick with curb feelers around Florida. I'm not saying that. But just, having an honest assessment. And maybe if this individual allowed himself to train and shut off the clock for a while or whatnot, and didn't feel the need to burn it down for a bit, because here's the deal, like, again, if you're at a certain stage in your life where your recovery's fine, sleep pattern is good, motivation is high, but you stick at this long enough through your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and your mindset stays the same, which is, I got to burn it down every day. I got to burn it down every day.
Mhm.
Well, if your mindset stays the same, but everything else in your body is aging by the decade, at some point in time, you walk into the gym, you didn't quite recover from yesterday's, and your mind says, send it. And you send it again. And now you're in a little bit more of a hole. And you wake up the next day and you
Yeah,
go, send it. Well, you didn't recover from the last 2 days, so now you're more in a hole. And you play this game for a couple weeks or months. Your mind keeps telling your body to cash these checks, and your body's really trying, but it's not
sure.
recovering. So the central nervous system is not as crisp. The muscles aren't firing. The contraction's not quite there. And you feel sluggish and you plateau. And why does this deadlift feel heavier than it normally does? But you keep trying to stomp the gas, and then you actually start to regress a little bit. And then now your motivation's in the toilet and you're in this bad place. And I've talked to countless of people. This is not just me making up fairy tales. Countless people that have experienced this. Well, maybe you keep walking in the gym, whether it's and do whatever works for you. You shut the clock off, you do something. You don't feel the need to burn it down for a while because you're over. Like he said, he doesn't even want to walk into the pain cave anymore. Gotcha. Well, if you allow yourself not to for a while, and I don't know if a while is 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months, I have a feeling that it might rekindle in you a little bit after you take this kind of mini vacation. You're still doing
Sure.
functional movements. You're getting a good sweat on, but you didn't worry about the clock.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're
Enjoy
telling
the
the timer.
social hour.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
one day after giving your body like this little break and just kind of listening to it each day, because you're not going off the clock, and you lift whatever feels heavy on that day, you might feel like, you know what? Geez, it's been a couple weeks. I feel pretty good. I feel a little froggy today. You know what? I'm gonna get after it a little bit today. Like you might feel that again,
sure.
and that desire, it might pop up, and maybe you can dance with that little devil. Maybe it's not 5 days a week anymore. Maybe you dance with it 3 times a week, whatever it is. But there's a good chance, because other people have experienced that as well, that just allowing yourself a little reprieve, that whatever, absence makes the heart grow fonder, or whatever it is. And now
Yeah,
that's for somebody who's maybe facing this burnout. And it also might with some of these like little nagging aches and pains
right.
that you're dealing with. I will say I've lived this journey myself. I started doing CrossFit when I was 30, and it was burn the boats every day. And that worked great, and I felt great, and everything was great. But now I just turned 50, like I still understand that intensity drives results. I still understand functional movements and variance. But if I go, Josh Everett berserk 5 days a week, the next week will be five personal worsts back to back to back to back. It
Yeah.
just is what it is. So now, over the course of this, is what works for me. Do whatever works for you, everybody. Out of the 5 days I train each week, one of them is usually a classic heavy day. I lift whatever feels appropriately challenging on the day. Like I push myself on that day to lift heavy. I respect it. Of the 4 remaining days, generally speaking, I try to burn it down on 2 of those days. And on the other two, I totally play it by ear. And I give
Mhm.
myself unlimited freedom to listen to my body, to turn the clock off, to do whatever. And again, I might shift it a little bit now and then. That's a general recipe. And for me, I just hum as an athlete. My motivation is good. That heavy lift compared with the 2 days of burning it down allow me to continue to make progress and get gains. And when it's one of those burn it down days for me, I'm ready to do it. Like today is actually, God help me,
Mm.
a burn it down day, a burn it down day in the gym for me.
Nice.
Yesterday intentionally was not. And
Mhm.
I'm going to get after it. And I also have a rest day the next day. So but this is a battle rhythm that works for me, may not work for somebody else. And it's taken me a long time to get here. And I not only had to make some experimentation and some trial and error, but I also had to, maybe you touched this before, like shift my mind a little bit, that this was what I needed to do if I wanted to keep doing CrossFit through my 50s, through my 60s, and as long as I possibly can. And so maybe that would be helpful for this gentleman to hear.
Yeah, you stole the words out of my mouth. I wanted to give you accolades for exactly that. Like, this has come up a lot on a lot of different episodes, your approach to intensity. And what sticks out to me and what I think makes it such a powerful tool is that scheduling of it permissions you in a lot of good ways. You know what I mean? Number one, you know those days that you're going to come in and give it a hard effort. So that's kind of a given. It's nice. But on the back end of that, like, I don't think it can be emphasized enough, the mental space that it gives you to be like, yeah, I'm still dedicated. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm still protecting my health and longevity. I'm still building the good habit that I want to maintain. Yet I have this pressure relief valve where it's like, yeah, I don't have to walk out of the gym feeling like I just got hit by a truck. That's not the intent today. And so you take that weight off your shoulders before it even starts. And I think that that can go a long way, regardless of your physical pursuit, frankly. I think that's really important. And it's funny you mentioned Josh um, Everett because, man, that guy was such a savage. Still is. I mean, the guy's an
I
amazing
grew up
athlete.
watching him in CrossFit.
100%. And he was notorious for just like full send, like throw himself in the fire. But if you talk to him today, I mean, he'll be the first one to tell you, he's like, no, man, that's not a regular day of training, day in and day out. My intensity is very modulated. Now, that doesn't mean he's coming in and just like lifting a 2-pound dumbbell.
Correct.
I mean, he's still engaging with his program, but the number of days, and I don't want to speak for him, you know what I
Right.
mean? But I'm very confident that he would give you this answer. The number of days that he comes in and he's truly like, okay, today is the day, it's an all-out effort, those are fewer and further between. And so what? You know what I mean? Anybody who, again, like we've talked about this at great length, that if anybody's trying to convince you that the only way to sustain progress or to make a session meaningful is an absolute barn burner of a session where you are just floored after the effort, they're either 20 years old and they don't have a lot of experience, or they don't understand the longevity aspect of doing something that is difficult. Um, and so that's kind of on them at that point. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you have to work hard. That's just kind of a given. But within that, there's a pretty broad strike range or strike zone as to what hard enough is. And so, play with that. Give yourself permission to play with that. It's a
Yeah.
big
Stay
deal.
in the game, as far as I'm
Yep.
concerned. Stay in the game
Yep.
because, like I said, I can't imagine a time that functional movements won't be what I want to pursue. I
Mhm.
understand intensity drives results. And if I had to do the same thing every day, I'd go bonkers. So variance is a wonderful thing, not only to
Sure.
keep my curiosity and interest and adherence to the program, but I understand the beautiful breadth and depth of fitness that variance takes. So my goal is to hold on to those three for as long as humanly possible. And that might,
Yep.
that might require every now and then just dialing some knobs this way or that way to stay in the game,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
that's that. So anyway, I think that's the general thing that I said, and I just, excuse me, my thoughts on this. And like I said, the post broke my heart just because we do the show and I do CrossFit because I am super passionate about it. I believe that it works. And when I hear far too many stories of somebody having such a dramatically different experience with
Mm.
something I've been doing for 2 decades, I just, it doesn't have to be that way. It
Sure.
really, it
Yeah.
really does not. So hopefully, and I've done plenty of dumb things, but hopefully, some of these things help get people on a better path, or let them understand that maybe they have a wider strike zone
Yeah.
than they thought. You've
Yep.
got this beautiful fitness freedom. So I think that's, I'll tell you the workout that I have to do today to close it.
Yeah. Hit me.
It's intervals. It's 3 intervals, 4 minutes rest between each. You need a
Okay.
barbell loaded with 70% of your back squat,
All right.
a pair of 50-pound dumbbells,
Okay.
and
Okay.
an a- and
Shaping up
an
nicely.
and an air bike. And so here's here's what you do, just as fast as you can. You slide under that barbell. You do a max effort set of back squats at 70%. You talk to your maker during that. You rack the barbell. You grab the dumbbells quickly. Don't dilly dally. You don't want your heart rate to come down. And your legs feel super strong. You execute 18 dumbbell push press. You
Okay.
set them on the ground, you hop on the bike, and you basically go full send for 1,200 meters, which is like, 400-meter run-ish. So max squat, dumbbell push press, hit it on the bike, rest 4 minutes, do it 2 more times. So knowing that that was
Oh man.
looming,
Yeah.
yesterday, I was like, I'm going to chill a little bit today because I am going to try to bring the heat today. So it is what it is.
Dude, I love it. That sounds nasty and certainly a funny way, kind of ironic to end a conversation about like, hey man, it's okay to modulate your intensity.
Right.
But there
Right.
you go. It's
Yes.
the planned intensity
Yes.
for the week. So
And
enjoy that.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
gonna be
and
good.
I'll leave you with this one, and maybe you can give me one
Yeah.
of yours if you've had one recently. I do, like I say, and I pepper it in there, but every now and then one sticks of like, I not only bribed, but it was like a borderline like call to the paramedics level. And I had that recently with an old CrossFit Hero workout. Do you remember this one, Jerry?
Mm, yeah, for sure.
Just
Yep.
run, row, run.
Yep.
Oh
Classic.
boy.
Oh
Oh,
man, I remember doing that
it was awful.
way back in the day. Yeah, that is a good one.
Awful. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I'll take the opposite end of that, man. We recently I did a charity row. It was a half marathon with 4 other individuals, and so it actually wasn't too bad. We had 4 of us, and we decided we were going to do it in 1K intervals. So you would row at 1K,
okay.
and then the 3 other bros would do it. And so you'd be on hard for 3.5, 4 minutes, and then you'd have about 10 to 12 minutes of rest. So it wasn't too bad. And this is kind of fun because it was with a group. You didn't have to burn it down, but it was a good, kind of nice longer session. And I challenged myself in that, not because I needed the extra work, but just because I think that it's nice to kind of keep some of these movements up. I love dips. So I was like, okay, every time one of my partners is rowing, I'm going to just get a couple dips in there. And so I ended up with, 100 plus dips at the end of it. I think I got 100 right on the nose,
You do
actually.
love dips.
I do, man. They're great. They're
They
like
are
desert
great.
island movement for me. So I did 100 dips just, in the rest periods, nothing too crazy, no real aggressive sets, but just to get some volume in there and to feel that movement. Got my rowing intervals in there. None of them like killed me. But it was a great session. I went home and I felt like I'd checked the box that day.
I'm
So
sure
it
you've
was good.
played around with, the trainers used to do it every now and then if we went to a gym and the gym actually had a set of P bars. What was
Mhm.
that like? It was like 5 dips, shimmy down to the end, 4 dips, shimmy down to the end. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you can do it a couple different ways. We used to do that where you would start at 1 and climb the ladder. So you do 1 on one
Okay.
side, climb, walk across, do 2 on the other side, walk back, etc.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's just fun stuff, just the
Yeah.
old basics. Yeah.
Yeah. And you
Yep.
get to see your buddy fail and fall on the P
Yeah,
bars. Just good stuff.
absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's it on this topic. Fair to say.
I think so. Yeah. And hey, best of luck to this individual. I hope you can keep your head in the game, whatever that looks like. I think the important thing is, figure out what you need to do to feel satisfied with your physicality and like keep after it. And that means taking your foot off the gas for a little bit and regrouping. So be it. Just don't quit.
Yeah. Keep training.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we appreciate you, everybody. If you've got ideas, topics for a new show, this show will obviously go on the btwb YouTube channel. Post your thoughts and comments on this particular topic that we discussed today. Ideas for future shows, leave that there. Or you can leave those ideas on the Very Not Random Instagram account as a public comment. Or if you want to be more discreet, you can send a direct message on the Very Not Random Instagram account. All those things make their way back to us. We appreciate you all out there. Train smart. For Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.